All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Let's go ahead and get started here. Hopefully, everybody had a great weekend. Get this zoomed in a little bit. All right, so let me go back and see what questions we got here. So looks like we had a few questions come in. So we'll start with Peric L. And just a reminder, if you had posted questions over the weekend or more than an hour ago, you'll just copy, and you're still on here, just copy and paste and put your question there. It'll get answered. But if you've asked a question in the last hour, just leave it up there and it'll get answered. So Peric L says, I'm really struggling to figure out the relationship between shallowing the club and not having a crazy into out path. When I try to swing to shallow out the club, my TrackMan path is getting up into the 6 to 8 degree range. The only way I can get back towards zero is feeling like I'm over the top, which seems to negate the whole idea of shallowing. So let's talk a little bit about why we want to shallow out the club and the difference between that and actually being on plane. So all really shallowing out the club is getting this club to be on plane to begin with. So this would be steep, and then this is shallow. So if you're coming down like this and you got this club shallowed out and you're swinging a ton from the inside, then you're overdoing it. I would try to ease off of that. And actually, you may want to feel like you're really rotating open a lot more. Because a lot of times when I see people who try to shallow out the club, what happens is they shallow out the club and they don't rotate. And that club gets to be where it's working too much from the inside. So that may be what's going on with you. But if you're seeing in to out 6 to 8 degrees, that's too much, right? So it's hard to say if you're shallowing out the club too much or not. You may be over shallowing out the club, getting in this kind of position, and then just dropping that club way underneath. And you may be shallowing out the club nicely, but not really rotating and then dropping the club underneath it. Like I said, it's hard to say without seeing your swing. You have to look at that on video and see what's going on. But I'll tell you exactly what you want to see on video. So on video, when we're looking from down the line here, what we want to see is this butt into the club when we're about parallel with the ground. So when the lead arm is about parallel with the ground, it's going to be about this position right here in the downswing. We want to see this butt into the club. If we were to draw a line all the way down to the ground, we like that to see that to be pointing a little bit outside the golf ball. And that's going to allow you to have this club on plane. Because if we're steep, if we're like this, if it's inside the golf ball, then what do we have to do to get it back on plane? We have to stand up and flip. And then if we're too shallow, if we're like this, then we got to compensate and we got to come over the top. So that might be what you're doing, is you may be over shallowing the club and overdoing it. So what I'd recommend doing is just ease off what you're doing a little bit. Take a look on camera. Try to get that club to be in a position to where it's pointing just a little bit outside of the golf ball on that side of the golf ball. And that's going to be the good position to be in. And then if you're not rotating and you're just dropping the hands, then really feel like you're really pushing into the ground and rotating the body to open up as you're coming into impact. Otherwise, there's really no sense in shallowing out the club at all. If you're just going to come into contact and flip the club anyway, then it doesn't make any sense. You don't even need to shallow out the club. So get that club nice and shallow and rotate the body open to get that club to work down on plane. And to know exactly what you need to do and for me to really coach you through it, the only way for me to really do that is be able to see your swing. And we do offer unlimited swing reviews. We do offer a program where you can send swings to an instructor. And I don't believe I have any spots available right now, but every now and then we try to open up some spots. We do have a limited number of students that we can work with. I am all full at the moment, but what you can do is you can join the waiting list, and then you'll be notified whenever spots become available. You'll be on a list of people. When you join that waiting list, you're on a list of people who will get notified when spots open up next. So the easiest way to find some information about unlimited swing reviews and to go where you can sign up, you can go to the top of the page there. You'll see where it says, learn more about working with top speed golf instructors. You can click that, or you can also click at the very top of the screen where it says, get a review. You'll click on that. That'll also take you to the page. And if there are any spots available, you can sign up there. I don't think that there are right now because I am all filled up. But just be on the lookout in your email, join that waiting list, and then be on the lookout in your email for an opportunity to sign up down the road. All right. So Philip L says, "Hi Q, I want to decrease my dispersion by playing either a draw or a fade. I can play both, but favor the draw. Is it better to choose one and stick with it rather than switching from shot to shot? If I choose to mostly practice the draw, will that be a good thing on most courses?" It's really hard to say. I mean, some courses set up better for a draw and some set up better for a fade. I will say, everyone's got their go-to shot. Everyone's got a shot that it's a little bit better or easier for them. Some people are more comfortable swinging more into out and closing the face, and some people are more comfortable swinging more out to in with an open face, which is going to be that phase. Going to be that fade. Some people are everybody's a little bit different in that regard. So whatever you're most comfortable with, that's going to be like your go-to shot. When you're on that 18th hole and you've got to hit the green, whatever your most natural movement is, that's your go-to shot. But the best players, they're able to do both. And you also want to be able to do both so that you can get yourself out of a rut. Because what if that draw starts to turn into a hook? You're overdoing it too much. You need to know how to get out of that. So being able to hit a fade is going to help you to get out of that a little bit. You may need to try to hit a fade to hit the ball straight, or to even hit a draw, you may need to try to hit a fade. Because a lot of what golf is just adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. So that's what you may want to do. You may want to get the feeling of doing both. The best practice that you can do is to alternate hitting fades and draws, hitting all these different kinds of shots. So what I actually like to do is I like to set up a little kind of a tic-tac-toe board, and that's the 9 shot shapes. So in general, there's 9 shot shapes. You're going to have your high, medium, and low trajectory straight shot. You're going to have your high, medium, low trajectory draw shot, and your high, medium, and low trajectory fade shot. I would go out there and practice hitting all those shots, even though some are going to be easier than others, but go out there and practice hitting all those shots. And what I like to do is I like to set up a little tic-tac-toe board, and I will count how many shots. If I'm attempting to hit, let's say I'm attempting to hit a high draw, I will hit as many shots as it takes to hit that perfect high draw. And I'm really stringent on what it has to be. It has to be solid contact. It has to be center face contact. It has to be good ball first contact. I can't hit it fat or thin or anything like that. It's got to be a nice solid shot, and it's got to start to the right, turn to the left, and it's got to be, if I'm hitting that high trajectory, it's got to be high, and it's got to come down within, usually I do within 5 yards of my target. Once I get that, then I'll move on to the next one. What I'll do is I'll write down how many shots it took me to do that. And when you fill out that whole tic-tac-toe board, you can kind of see what your struggles are with. You can see, okay, you can look down the line and add all the fades up. And you can see, compare that to your draw shots. We're like, okay, maybe I need to work on the fade a little bit more because I'm a lot worse with the fade than I am with the draw. So working on that. But I would be working on knowing all the shot shapes, understanding how to hit all of them. That's what the best players in the world do. And that's what really everyone should do. And that's gonna make you a better player if you understand how to do all those things. So that's what I would recommend doing. But you're always going to have that go-to shot. And as far as one that you kind of want to stick with and use all the time, and maybe one that you want to get really good at, just think about the courses that you play most often. Think about how those holes set up. Now, most of the time, you don't go play a course where it just completely favors hitting a draw. I mean, usually that's not the way that it goes. Usually you're going to have a good mix. If it's a well-designed course, you're going to have a good mix of holes where it would be better to hit a draw, and you're going to have some where it'd be better to hit a fade. You're going to have some where it'd be better to hit it long and straight. You're going to have all kinds of different kinds of holes. But, there are some courses out there where, maybe 12 out of the 18 holes are better to hit a fade, and that might be the one that you really want to get good at and have that be your go-to shot. But it really just depends on the courses that you play. All right, so let's go on to the next. So Philip L went on to say, also, is my understanding correct that a draw requires less forward shaft lean to achieve the same ball compression and spin? If so, does that mean that a draw is a flipper swing with less margin for error at impact. No, that does not. All that has to happen for a draw is that the face needs to be closed to the club path. So our club face, which is the direction that the face is pointing at contact, needs to be closed to the direction the club head is moving through contact. So if I'm trying to hit a draw that starts to the right and then draws to the left, what I need to do is I need to have my face a little open at contact for that ball to start to the right, and then I need to have my club working a little bit more to the right than that. And what's going to happen is that ball will start a little bit to the right, and then it'll curve away from my club path because my face is closed to my path. When you hit it straight, your face and your path are relatively in the same direction. So a lot of times what happens is that when you hit a draw, because the face has to be closed to the path, a lot of times what happens is that face loses loft, because when you close the face, you have less loft. So that's why a lot of times it goes lower. And then with a fade, because it's open, the face is open to the path, you add loft, and that's why a lot of times it goes higher. So that's why when you hear the expression power fade, is when you hit a power fade, you have to make up, you have to get more forward shaft lean to make up for that loft that you're losing from opening up the face. And that's really what a power fade is. So you can flip and hit a draw, you can flip and hit a fade. There's no correlation to more people who flip hit a draw and more people who flip hit a fade. It's probably split down the middle. I don't know of any studies about that. I'd say they're not really directly correlated. So Patrick G says, I need to hit my fairway woods without hitting the ball in ground. Without hitting the ball in ground. I want to hit nice flush shots. I tend to hit woods like irons. Need help, please. So you actually do want to hit your woods like an iron. You're hitting any shot that you're hitting off the turf, you're hitting the same way. You have to have ball first contact. Now, the only way that you're going to be able to hit that ball completely dead flush and not really take much of a divot, because you're going to rough up the grass a little bit. But if you're just going to kind of sweep the grass, and the only way to hit it solid and be able to sweep the grass is if the ball is just kind of sitting up on the grass like it's on a tee. So it's able to get underneath the golf ball a little bit. Because if you just sweep the grass and you have the ball kind of sitting down on kind of a tight lie, you're going to hit it low on the grooves. And when you hit it low on the grooves, it's a thin shot. It's not going to go as far. It's going to end up having a lot more spin on it, and it gets kind of caught up in the wind a lot of times. It's just not going to go as far. So ideally what you'd want to do is you want to take a little bit of a divot. Now, if you're having trouble chunking a lot of your irons, or your 3-wood, there's two things that I most often see, and we actually just made a video on this today. So the first thing is I see people play the ball too far forward in their stance. You know, we get that wood in our hand and we think, okay, I need to play this ball more forward in my stance, just like I do with my driver. But the problem is that the ground is in the way. With the driver, you're hitting up on the ball. The ball's up on a tee. The ground's not in the way. You can bottom out, and then you can hit up on the golf ball. And that's ideally what you want to do if you want to, with a driver, to get high launch and low spin. So that's why we want to play that ball a little bit forward in our stance. Generally, what I say is straight down from the lead shoulder, lead armpit. That's going to be a good area for you to be in. Now, with a wood, when we're hitting it off the ground, any shot that you hit off the ground, you can make it this simple. You can play it straight down from the lead ear. So that's going to put it about right there. It's a little bit ahead of the middle of your stance typically. And you can play a fairway wood just a little bit ahead of that to help it maybe come in a little bit more shallow. But we still need to hit down on it. Tour players are hitting down on their 3-wood a couple degrees. And it's not very much. It's still coming in very, very level. But you should take, if it's on kind of a tightly mown lie, or it's in some wet conditions, you're still going to take a little bit of a divot there, typically, to get that strike high enough on the face to really be able to hit it as solid as possible. So that's the first thing that I see is people tend to have that ball too far forward in the stance. And that kind of compounds the next issue that I see is that when we see that ball forward in the stance, and we know intuitively that ground is in the way, so we need to get to our lead side. So what ends up happening is in the backswing, we tend to lean toward the target a little bit. And when we lean toward the target, in the backswing, we're going to fall away in the downswing. And again, that moves that low point of our club back and makes it to where we're chunking or topping our woods. So if that low point, now when I talk about low point, what I'm saying is that the club comes down, it reaches a low point, and then moves back up. When we're hitting shots off the ground, we want that low point where that club comes down, bottoms out, and then moves back up. That needs to be ahead of the golf ball. That needs to be in front of the golf ball. Otherwise, you're going to be making ground first contact, or if you miss the ground, you're typically going to top it. So we need to get that ground, that ball first contact. Now, with a driver, the reason why we play that forward in the stance is so that the club can bottom out, not hit the ground, and then move up into the ball. That's going to allow us to get high launch and low spin, but that's not what we want to do with our fairway woods off the turf. Now, if you're hitting a 3-wood off of a tee and you're trying to launch it out there, you can hit it the same way you do with your driver. You can move it up in your stance a little bit, tee it up so that you can come down and bottom that club out and move up into the driver. But when you're hitting shots off the turf, you got to make ball first contact. Otherwise, you're just never going to hit it solid. So I recommend hitting it. Taking a little bit of divot is completely fine. That's actually what you want to do, and that's going to allow you to hit the best shots. It's not going to be as much as a wedge. A wedge comes down because it's a shorter club. Your arc is smaller, so when you hit into the ground, it's going to go deeper into the ground, and it's also got a leading edge. It's going to dig more into the ground and push that in, and the club's going to be pushed down into the ground a little bit more because of that leading edge. So that's why you're going to see more divots with your shorter clubs, like your wedges, bigger divots, deeper divots most often than you're going to see with your fairway woods, your hybrids, and your long irons. All right, bro. So Patrick G went on to say, I also need help with irons. Hit the ball first and make big divots. What do I need to do to hit the ball flush and no divots? So just like I said, we want to hit divots. If you're making divots, that means that you're making ball first contact. But that's exactly what we want to do. We want to make sure that we're making ball first contact. If you're making a divot behind the golf ball, then that's not what we want to do. Now, if you're taking too deep of a divot, meaning you're coming down, you're chopping down into the golf ball, then that's not what we want to do, because that's going to add a lot of spin. The ball is going to come out really, really low a lot of times. And your margin for error is going to be pretty thin. So we want to take those divots, but we want to come down and feel like we're taking that top layer of turf off, almost like the club's like a razor blade, and it's coming in, just taking that top layer of turf off there, and you're getting that nice, pretty dollar bill size divot. I mean, look at tour players. Look at them hit balls. If you're watching, Patrick, if you're watching pro players on TV, you're seeing them take divots. You want to take divots. You don't want to just flush the ball on the turf, because it's going to be hard to be consistent. You're going to hit a lot of thin shots when you do that. So the way to control that, the easiest way is with your compression line. So the compression line, if you haven't been to our compression line course, if you're not familiar with what it is, the compression line is the line that goes from your lead ankle, your lead hip, to your lead shoulder. We want that line, and this is at impact is where it's measured. We want that to be in a nice straight line. So if I angle this down, I can kind of show you what that would look like. So as I'm coming down into contact here, I want that to be in a nice straight line here. So my compression line is right here. You can draw a line straight up from there. We don't want to be like this, right? Where we're really, really bumped out. You can see on my hips, very, very bumped out. See that quite often. You don't want to be like this, right? Or chopping down into the ball. We don't want to be like this. And this might be why you are chopping down or getting that really deep divot, is because your compression line is leaning forward at contact. We want that compression line to be slightly angled away from the target as you're coming in. That's going to allow you to come in pretty shallow with the ball, but also allow you to be able to take a divot as you're coming through there. So if you're coming in and your compression line's angled forward, what's going to happen is you're going to chop down into the golf ball. So what I'd recommend doing, Patrick, what you may need to do is you may just need to go to our compression line section and start working through the drills there. Now, the easiest way to get to that compression line course is just to go up to the top of the page and click the house icon there. There's an icon there. It just looks like a little tiny house. That'll take you to the home page. On the home page, when you scroll down, you'll see a list of all the Top Speed Golf System courses. And then I would click and scroll through there, find that compression line course, and start working on that and get that fully ingrained so you don't even have to think about it. Do all the reps, get that fully ingrained, and make it second nature so that when you go out, you're taking nice, beautiful divots every single time and not really chopping down into the ball. All right, so Mike O says, how important is opening the lower body before the upper body? I'm 71 and find it difficult to separate the two. Suggestions. So it's pretty important as far as swing mechanics are concerned. You can play good golf with basically an upper body centric swing, but it just makes it very, very difficult. It's hard to be consistent when you're flipping the club, because if you swing with your upper body, you're not creating momentum with your lower body, and you're also going to typically flip the club and add loft. So there's a lot of things going on there that's going to make it difficult to be consistent. So one is what I talked about, creating momentum. So if I'm not opening up my body and I'm just throwing my arms at the golf ball, then my lower body isn't creating any kind of momentum. Now, most of your speed is going to come from your upper body, but to be able to swing in the most efficient way, you have to use your lower body as well. And that's what the best players in the world are doing. And really any player that's really good is most likely doing the same thing. So if you think about it in this sense, you have, I don't know if you've seen the Momentum Train video, but I believe it's in the straight line release course where Clay talks about the momentum train. So the easiest way to visualize this is to think about if you have one train here and it's going 60 miles per hour, and then you take another train and you put it right on top of that train, right on the roof, and it's also going 60 miles per hour. And then you take a third train and put it right on top of those two trains. It's also going 60 miles per hour. So if you think about that top train, if you add all those up, 60 miles per hour, 60 miles per hour, 60 miles per hour, it adds up to 180 miles per hour. But that top train is moving 30 miles per hour relative to the train below it. So that's what's happening with your body. If you're just swinging all upper body and all arms, then you're taking away trains. You only have the one train or maybe the two trains that are giving you speed. Now, those trains can be really fast, but if you have that extra train, you're going to go a lot further. You're going to be able to create more speed. So that's the speed part of it, being able to create momentum. The second part of it is being able to have proper swing mechanics. So if I release this club early, and that's what's going to happen when I don't use my lower body, because if you think about it, if I were just to swing this club and just stop my hand, I'm just going to stop my hand and this club, it's going to want to keep going. So that's what's happening with our body. When we're going up here and we don't get any separation, our hips stall out, that club is just going to race out in front. We're going to get that early release. So when you early release the club, you're adding loft to it. So when you're coming in, here's forward shaft lean, and here's adding loft to it when you're releasing that club early. When you add loft, you're taking away power out of the golf ball. This is the reason why you hit your 8-iron further than your wedge, because your wedge has more loft on it. It's not going to go as far. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is when you release the club early, you're going to typically hit it thin because you're coming in so level with the turf. When you release the club early, that club comes in very, very shallow with the turf. And oftentimes you'll hit up on the golf ball as well, which is not what we want to do because the ground is in the way. So you're typically going to hit a lot of shots that are really low on the face. And when you do that, the ball is going to tend to crawl up the face, and that's going to add spin. Not to mention, you're not going to be transferring as much energy to the golf ball because it's a miss center strike. So that's a big part of it as well. It's going to be hard to get center face contact because we're coming in shallow. It's also going to be difficult to get center face contact because there's no forward shaft lean. So if I have a golf ball here, let me use a different club here that's easier to see. So here I am at contact, and here's no forward shaft lean. See where I'm coming in? I'm coming in very, very level, and my contact there is going to be really low on the face. But watch what happens if I lean this shaft forward. See where that contact goes? That contact goes much higher on the face. So it's just going to make it a lot more difficult to make really, really good solid contact and to be consistent with it. So that's what I recommend doing, is to make sure that you're using your lower body. And if you're having difficulty with that, it's hard to say what may be the main reason why you're having difficulty with this. But there's all kinds of reasons that are out there. It could be that you're just not getting your legs involved. It could be that you're not shallowing out the club, which we talked about earlier. So that would be the move course. It could be, that you're pushing through with the trail hand. The arms are just racing in front of the body, and that's also the move course. It could be that you just don't understand how to release the club. That's going to be the straight line release course. So there's all kinds of things. It's hard for me to know what exactly the issue is, Mike, without seeing your swing. Actually, yeah, it was Mike who asked this question. So it's hard for me to know without seeing your swing. But I would take a look at your swing, and I would see what's going on there. Is it because you're coming down steep? And by looking at that, that would be the club being in this position here, where it's not pointing outside the golf ball. So in the downswing, when my hands are about parallel with my shoulders, about the same level with my shoulders, where's the butt end of the club pointing? If it's pointing inside the golf ball, that means you're steep. When you're steep, you've got to stand up to get that club to work from the inside, and in order to get that club to work on plane. And when you stand up, you flip and you don't rotate with your legs. It's one of the most common things that I see. And, people struggle with getting the legs involved. It could be that you're just not using the legs. So like I said, it's hard for me to know without seeing your swing. But if you'd like for me to see your swing and to give you some advice and tell you exactly what you need to do, you want to join my unlimited swing review program. I don't have spots available right now, but what you can do is you can go and click on that get a review at the top there, or you can also click learn more about working with Top Speed Golf instructors at the top as well. And you can go down there and scroll down on that list or on that page and go to where you see me, and it's click join waiting. If there's a spot available, then join that spot. People, sometimes people will cancel and it'll open up a spot. So it might be your lucky day and there might be a spot there, because I'm usually filled up pretty much all the time. So and if you like, Robin is on there as well. If he's got a spot available, you can join him and do his unlimited reviews. We both teach, the Top Speed Golf system, and Robin is a great instructor as well. So wouldn't go wrong with either one. So I would check that out. And if there's no spots available, then join that waiting list. And what that does is it puts you on a list, an email list of people who will get notified first when spots become available. It's still going to be first come, first serve. But you're going to be in a group of people that are going to get an email saying, hey, Q has spots available, go sign up. And then from there, it's first come, first serve. And then usually if nobody takes a spot, or, if it all gets filled up, then nobody else gets emailed. But if those spots don't get filled up, then we'll send it out to the rest of the list. All right, so let's keep on moving through the questions here. All right, so Thomas J says, I struggle with a too early release with my short irons. Woods and long irons are much better and generally more consistent. Any thoughts? So, Thomas, it goes right back to what I was talking about with Mike there. It's hard for me to know exactly the reason why. And there's really, sometimes with a longer club, it feels a little bit different. Maybe we're more comfortable with it. And it could be vice versa as well. I see people all the time that have a great release with their wedges and their short irons, but then with the longer clubs, they release the club early. But then I've seen it vice versa as well in your situation. So it really just depends on how comfortable you are with certain things. But most likely what you need to do is check on video and see if you're coming down steep. See where that club is pointing. If it's steep, then you need to get that club shallowing out. Otherwise, you basically have no chance of releasing that club early. So it could be with your shorter clubs that you are coming down steep, because maybe you're trying to chop down into the ball a little bit and take a bigger divot or something like that. Like I said, it's hard for me to know without seeing your swing, but that's most likely what's going on. It could be with the way that you're used to squaring up the face. A lot of times with the shorter irons, because we're trying to hit them higher, we'll try to help the ball up in the air and add loft and get that early release. Again, that's going to be the move. That's going to be the straight line release course. There's all kinds of things going on there. So but if you'd like me to take a look at your swing and see exactly what's going on, then I'd recommend signing up for my limited swing reviews or joining that waiting list. But the way to get your club to not release early is going to be most likely the move course is where you're going to want to go, because that's going to get you to where you're shallowing out the club and getting that club squared up in a different way to help you get forward shaffling. Or it's going to be the release, getting that to work a little bit better. It could also be the compression line. If you're bumping with your hip way out and not rotating the body open, you're almost always going to release that club early. And that might be maybe because you're trying to get to your lead side with those shorter irons. You bump the hip and you don't open up, and then you just release it early. It could be what's going on there as well. So it's hard to say without seeing your swing, but I would be looking at your swing on video and seeing where you're lining up with those. But if you'd like an instructor to take a look and tell you exactly what's going on, that's going to be the Unlimited Swing Review program. And I would check that out by clicking the links above the page here. All right, so lots of questions today. Awesome. So if you continue to have your questions, go ahead and post them on here. We got another 30 minutes or so on here, so go ahead and keep posting them, and we'll keep answering them. All right, so Larry S. says, I started a new membership last week, watched the 20-minute distance fix, but the ranges won't be open until April. Any suggestions the best way to use the course until then to get start on the season? So what you can do is you can go through the drills. And, if you can get a setup, if you have room in your house, you can get a setup to where you're hitting into a net with your driver. It's fairly reasonable these days. I think you can get a net for $150. You can probably get a mat for about the same price. Get yourself a swing speed radar. I mean, you can get yourself a decent setup for probably under $500, I would imagine. And that'll get you to where you can work through the drills at home. But you can do it for even less. The main thing I would get is the swing speed radar. So as long as you have that swing speed radar, you can kind of work on swinging without the golf ball and trying to get that speed to go up. So you can work through the drills, work through the catapult drill, getting to where you're getting the hips more pointed away, getting to where you're getting the shoulders more pointed away, getting that big shoulder turn. You can work through those things. You can also work through the step drill. As long as you have the space to do it, at home for sure. Maybe you can find a warm day. You can go out, or maybe just bundle up, go out in the backyard and do the drills there as well. But best case scenario is to find a heated range and work on it there. Second best case is if you have the space at home to have the net set up and be able to actually hit balls into the net. Because what we're really after here is getting you that speed. We're looking to get that speed up, because if your speed goes up, then your distance is going to go up as well, because you're going to get more comfortable swinging faster, and the contact is going to come after that. And then the next best bet after that would be just to get the swing speed radar and actually just swing with it if you have the space in your house. If you don't have the space in your house to be able to actually swing the club, it's going to be tough to do some of the drills. You can do some of the catapult drill. So the catapult drill is going to be putting the club across your shoulders here. I mean, you mentioned that you watched it. It's going to be putting that club across your shoulders and doing the turns and stuff like that. That's stuff that you can do at home. But there's a lot of the drills you can do at home. But that's what I'd be working on, to maybe work through the power turn course on the website as well. That's going to be really, really great for distance. And a lot of those drills in the power turn course don't require you to go to the range. They're just trying to some drills to get you with the movement there. So that's what I would recommend doing. All right, so Thomas L. said, don't know if you can answer this here, but here it goes. I'm 70 years old, have upped my club head speed to 90. Highest is 91. Awesome. My videos look pretty good with lines lining up where the course wants them. I'm wondering if I can expect any improvement on the speed and distance, about 225 with the driver. So, Thomas, if you're looking to get speed and distance, then I'd be recommending working through our 20-minute distance fix. So it sounds like you've gone through the Top Speed Golf system and you're hitting all those positions. But if you're looking to really get some speed, then I would be going to our 20-minute distance fix course. So basically, as far as distance is concerned and improving your speed, there's three categories that we found that help you the most. Now, there's all kinds of things that you can do, but these are the three things that help you the most. So number one is improving that range of motion. I know maybe you're just getting to your 90-degree turn right now, which is what we recommend, going 90 degrees or even more if you can. But we want you to get that maximum range of motion. If you're really struggling to get distance, your highest is 90, and you want to get up to 100 miles per hour, then improving that range of motion, getting to where you're getting as big a shoulder turn as possible can help you out with that. So that could mean freeing up the hips a little bit more, getting this, turning this trail foot out a little bit so the hips can turn a little bit more, lifting the lead heel off the ground to free up the hips a little bit. Overall, that's going to help you get a bigger shoulder turn. So that's part of it. The second part of range of motion is getting the hands up high. So if you look at your swing, and as far as the Tatsuki golf system is concerned, you can have a super vertical swing or you can have a super flat swing. It's completely fine. But for distance, the best thing to do is to have a more vertical swing. So if you look at your swing on video and you're seeing that you're kind of in this area instead of more in this area, look at all tour players. Pretty much every single tour player is going to have a fairly vertical swing. But there's a few out there like Matt Kuchar. He's pretty flat. He's kind of in this area, but he's also not a real long hitter, and he's a pretty tall, lanky guy. He could probably hit the ball further if he got his hands a little bit more vertical. But those two things there. So that's in the category of range of motion. So getting bigger shoulder turn, higher hands. And then the second piece is sequencing. So what's involved with sequencing, the subcategories of sequencing, you're going to have your loading up. For any powerful athletic movement, you are loading up. If you think about, a basketball player going up to dunk the ball, they don't just, go up and dunk the ball. Maybe if they're tackle fall and they're 7'6" or whatever he is, he can do it probably flat footed and just dunk it in there. But for anybody, most NBA players, they're bending down, they're loading up, and then they explode up to the rim to dunk it. A baseball pitcher, right? They just don't suddenly throw it. They wind up, they load up, and then they explode toward the plate. So the same thing in golf. In golf, we don't just want to stay here and then stay in our lead side. We want to load up in our trail side, and then we want to get that good weight shift to our lead side, which is the second speed. So loading up and then getting that good weight shift to the lead side, being able to use the ground a little bit there. So that's the first and second part of sequencing. The third part is getting that lag. So getting this club to lag behind the hands a little bit. This is going to help you to store some energy in the swing so that you can release it out in front, which is the last piece, is release. So if we're casting the club, if we're here and we're casting the club like that, we're releasing all this energy of the club, and we're going to end up kind of scooping as we come through contact. So the lag and then releasing that lag as hard as we can is going to help you to get those speeds. So those are the first two pieces. The last piece is something that's called neural adaptation. So the way to think about this is, if you weren't to do anything, those first two pieces, you weren't going to do any range of motion, you weren't going to do any sequencing drills, but you just went out to the course and you literally just swung as hard as you possibly can. Let's say 3 times a week, and you did 10, 20 swings where you swung 100% effort as hard as you possibly can. But you didn't work out any technique. You just swung as hard as you possibly can. Your club head speed is going to go up. That's from neural adaptation. You're recruiting larger muscles in your body to be able to do that. That's called the size principle. So if I go to take a drink of this glass here, and I'm going to use the smallest amount of muscles possible to be able to do that. If I were to use my biggest muscles possible, I would just throw that glass right into my face, right? If it was like 100% effort. So that's what's happening in the golf swing. When you just kind of swing nice and easy, you're going to recruit the smallest muscles possible to be able to do that. But if you swing with 100% effort, you're teaching your body to recruit the big muscles that move and contract the most, and that's going to allow you to get more club head speed. So that's what neural adaptation basically is. So through all the drills that you're doing through the 20-minute distance fix, you're also swinging with 100% effort when you go to hit the golf ball. You're doing that with every single drill. So just to recap, the 3 biggest pieces that help you to gain club head speed and to hit the ball further is going to be your range of motion, your sequencing, and neural adaptation. If those are the 3 biggest things you can do, And that's what I'd recommend you do. So if you want to work on the 20-minute distance fix, then the easiest way to get to it, Larry, he was looking at working on it as well. The easiest way to get to it is to go to the instruction tab at the top of the screen there. If you click on that, it'll expand a menu, and it's the very first option on there is it says 20-minute distance fix. Click on that and get started. Do the quick start video. Listen to that QS2, which is going to be all about neural adaptation. That's all in the quick start portion, and then start working through the week 1 materials as well. There's a lot of great content on there as well, as far as, we call it the big hitters mindset, getting in that big hitters mindset, understanding what big hitters do, becoming a big hitter. There's all kinds of great information in there that's going to help you with that. And I highly recommend not skipping that either. So the other way to get to it is just to click the house icon. That's going to take you to the homepage. If you scroll down the homepage, you'll see Top Speed Golf System courses. It's one of the ones toward the top there. Click on that and get started as well. All right, so got a lot of questions about flipping today. David, not sure if you were here earlier, but I talked about, I've had 3 or 4 people ask me how to stop that early release, stop the flipping, and things like that. But what it comes down to is it's really hard for me to know exactly what you're doing to flip the club. There's all kinds of reasons for it. But the biggest reasons that I see are most likely coming down steep. So working on getting this club to be where it's more shallowed out. Because if it's steep, I've got to release this club because I have to stand up. So if it's steep, because it's steep, to get this club to come back down plane, I got to stand up. I got to raise the handle, drop the club so it's more on plane. And when I stand up, what do? I flip. I have to flip to get to the golf ball. So that's a big reason. That's going to be the move course. It could be with the way, and it could be a combination of this as well, the way that you're used to squaring the face. If you're someone who's flipped your whole life, and you've managed to hit some straight golf shots, this is how you're used to squaring up the face. You're used to coming in with no forward shaft lean. So trail hand is pushing the club through. You're going to see that's relatively flat. Lead hand is going to be pretty, cupped or breaking down, as you would say here. If I'm in this position, look, I have a square club face, but no forward shaft lean. I'm flipping through contact. But once I start to get some forward shaft lean, and I try to keep these wrist angles, I try to square up the club face in the same way, look what happens. Club face becomes wide open. Now I have forward shaft lean here. So I have forward shaft lean, and I've kept these wrist angles. But what happens is my club face is wide open. So I have to turn this hand. It's called turning the handle down. Now you can see that squares the face. If I go back to this position, look what happens when I turn the handle down. When I turn the handle down, my lead hand is doing this motion, right? I'm bowing that lead wrist. It's going to be relatively flat to bowed. This trail wrist is doing this action. It's being more in a bent back position. And for a lot of people, they struggle with this because it feels very weak. It feels that right hand bent back position feels super weak. But the reality is that it's not weak because you're getting that whip through contact, and you're also de-lofting the face, which makes it a lot stronger. So you may need to work on the move. You may need to work on the straight line release. You may need to work on lag. If you're seeing from the very beginning of the swing, the very beginning of the downswing, that this angle between your lead arm and the shaft is getting bigger from the very, very beginning, it's most likely because you need to work on getting some lag. If you're getting some lag here, you're getting in this position, and then you're flipping from there, you probably need to work on the move, and the move is going to entail, getting that club shallowed out. It's going to entail how you square up the face. You may need to work on the straight line release course as well. So it's hard for me to know exactly what it is that you need to work on, but take those tips, look at your swing on video, see what's going on there, work through the appropriate course. And if you want help, or if you want to know exactly what it is, pinpoint the best drill for you to work on to get you to where you want to go, sign up for the Unlimited Swing Reviews. And like I said earlier, I don't believe I have any spots available right now, but I should have some available here in the future. Sometimes people cancel every now and then. I usually stay pretty filled up, but I have a limited number of students that I can work with. So when spots open up, we can send out an email and let people know. And if you join that waiting list, you'll be on a list of people that are going to get to know first. So if you're interested in swing reviews at all, you may as well join that waiting list, and so that you can be notified first. Because if we send it out to the waiting list and the waiting list fills up all the spots, then nobody else is even going to know that I had spots available, because we won't send out an email to them. But if there are still spots available after we go to the waiting list, then because last time we opened up spots, we opened up some spots in November, I believe it was, and the waiting list filled it up. So the rest of the list really didn't. I don't even think we sent out an email to everybody else because the spots weren't filled up. So join that waiting list if you want to get on there, because it may be possible that you won't have a chance to sign up unless you do. All right, so let's keep moving our way through the questions here. If you got a question, go ahead and post it on here. It looks like Nicholas has the last posted question on here. So if we don't have any questions after that, then you just kind of get to, look at me, check my email or whatever, which I'm sure is no fun for anyone. So go ahead and get your questions on there, and we will get it answered. So Nicholas D says, I think it is common to consider wind and rain conditions when picking the proper club for particular distance shot. When in cold weather, it appears the temperature also affects distance. Any suggestions on how much you might lose in distance because of temperature? Yes. So colder temperatures definitely does reduce distance. Part of it is because of the golf ball. A colder golf ball isn't going to go as far, whereas a warmer golf ball is going to go further. And partly is because of atmospheric conditions. So colder air, the ball doesn't fly as well in colder air as it does in warmer air. There's all kinds of conditions that make the ball fly further versus fly shorter. So elevation is a big one. Temperature is a pretty large one. But what I'd recommend doing, is if it's a little bit cooler. If it's a little bit cooler, like let's say if it's a difference between 70 and 80 degrees, you're not going to see much of a difference. But if it's a difference between 90 and 50 degrees, it could be like a 10-yard difference. It might be a club difference. It really just depends on where you are. But that's what I would do, is I would kind of think, if you're playing, if you normally hit the ball so far in 90-degree weather, and you're in 50-degree weather, I would plan on the ball just flying about 10 yards shorter. Now, I don't know the exact scientific number. There's just so many variables involved with it that make the ball fly shorter, further. Wind definitely knocks down the ball. Rain will knock down the ball. But actually, humidity will actually make the ball fly slightly further. But if it's actual rain drops, it will make the ball not go as far. So keep that in mind as well. But it's pretty negligible. It's a very, very small amount that humidity makes much of a difference. But heat makes a pretty big difference, mainly because of the golf balls. And then elevation is probably one of the biggest differences. Here in Orlando, elevation is very low. We're not above 1,000 feet, I don't think, anywhere. And then we're very high humidity. It's warmer here, which definitely helps. But typically, I don't hit the ball as far here as I did where I was in college. In college, I went to college in Rapid City, South Dakota, in the Black Hills of South Dakota. Very high elevation there. Thousands of feet up. The ball went really far. Typically, very dry weather, especially in the summertime. Got pretty dry out there, so everything was pretty baked out. The ball would go forever. I had some crazy long drives out there, whereas here, usually because of all the rain we get, it's softer and things like that. So I would definitely consider, that to be a condition that you'll want to make a difference. But typically, it's not going to make that much of a difference unless it's extreme one end to the other. So if it's really, really cool out, I would just plan on 10 yards. Start out with that. And then if you find that you hit it a little bit further, or a little bit shorter, adjust accordingly. You may have to kind of calibrate yourself in the beginning of the round to see how far the ball is going compared to what you think it's going to. But the longer the shot too is going to make more of a difference. So, and it also there's differences in club head speed. So if you're a low club head speed player, it may not make much of a difference for you. Whereas if you're a very high club head speed player, that temperature is going to make more of a difference for you, because the ball is compressing more. It's in the air longer. It's in those conditions longer. So those are all things to keep in mind. But yes, the ball is definitely going to go not as far in cooler weather. So be aware of that, and then adjust accordingly. But it's not going to be a ton of yardage typically. All right. So Tom D says, what is the most likely cause the ball struck towards the toe of the club? So a big reason why I see a lot of people strike the ball towards the toe of the club is because of an over-the-top swing. So when you swing over the top, the club is kind of working out to in toward the golf ball. So if you imagine this club's coming down, it's swinging out to in. My fist is the golf ball. You can see it's got to be timed perfectly to get it in the center of the face. But the toe is what's moving toward the golf ball, and you're going to end up hitting a lot of shots toward the toe when that happens. So I would look at your swing, see if you're swinging out to in to out, or on plane. But if you're swinging out to in, that's most likely a big reason. So swinging more into out is going to help with that. And then conversely, if you're swinging a lot into out, you're going to typically hit a lot of shanks and heel strikes. A lot of times if you're swinging extreme into out. Now, if you're not hitting, you're not coming over the top, you're swinging perfectly on plane, everything looks great, then really what you may need to do is you may just need to adjust your feel to get the desired result that you want. And all that means is striking the ball off the heel, intentionally trying to strike the ball off the heel. So line up the ball as you used to, as you would normally line up to it. If you line up to the ball normally on the toe, then line up there. Most people are lining up to the ball, in the center of the club face. But I don't want you lining up. If you're hitting it on the toe, I don't want you lining it up on the heel. And the reason for that is that we're going to adapt. It might work for a couple swings, but you're going to adapt. And you're just going to start hitting it on the toe even worse, because subconsciously you're thinking, if I swing down like this, I'm going to hit it off of the heel. So you kind of pull your hands in or whatever to make that not happen. So I wouldn't recommend doing that, but line up on the face the way that you normally would. And then what you're going to do is you're going to intentionally strike the ball on the heel. So line up the way you normally would, then intentionally strike it on the heel. Most likely what's going to happen, it's going to move that strike closer to the center. If you're still in the heel, then you got to get out of your comfort zone a little bit. I know this is if you're still in the toe, and I know this is kind of weird or crazy to think, I'm going to intentionally hit a bad shot to hit a good shot. But that's all this is adjusting your feel to get to the desired result that you want. Because right now, you're trying to hit the ball in the center of the face, but the reality of the situation is you're hitting it in the toe. So get out of your comfort zone, intentionally try to strike that ball on the heel. And like I said, most likely what's going to happen, it's going to end up in the center of the face. Now, if you actually strike the ball in the heel when you're trying to, then just ease off of that feeling a little bit to get it more in the center of the face. Now, over time, you got to keep doing this. And if you keep doing it, and you start getting a lot of strikes in the heel where you're trying to, and at that point, you're calibrated, right? You're calibrated to hit it right in the center of the face. So then at that point, I would go back to just trying to strike it in the center of the face. So that's a big thing that's going to really help you to make that easy to strike it more in the center of the face. So swinging over the top, adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. It could be you're standing too far away from the golf ball. If you're really kind of reaching out and bending over a lot for the golf ball, a lot of times it's going to be very difficult to get the center of the face on it, and you're going to hit a lot of shots off the toe. So in general, what you want to do is you want to get a little bit of flex in those knees there, and then a little bit bend over at the waist, and then just kind of let your arms hang straight down. That's basically where you want to be. Your hands are going to be, 5-6 inches in front of your thighs here, and that's going to be a pretty good place to be. If you're way out here, that might be why you're striking it on the toe. So moving in a little bit closer to the golf ball, getting to where your arms are kind of hanging, straight down here, it may make it a little bit easier for you to get that strike in the center of the face. So that's something I would think about as well. One last thing that may help you, if you are striking the ball in the toe, then what I would try to feel like is as you're coming down, maybe that you're a little bit more on your toes as you're coming into contact. And if you're struggling with heel strikes, everything I'm saying is just the opposite. If you're struggling with heel strikes, then it may be better to kind of feel like you're more in your heels as you're coming through. You may be standing too close to the golf ball. Maybe you need to stand a little bit further away. you may be swinging too much from the inside. It's basically just the opposite that can help you out as well. So, Tom, hopefully that helps. Definitely, take a look at what's going on video, adjust your feeling to get the desired result, and check those setup tricks as well. All right, so Philip L says, my club can be adjusted to have a draw or fade bias. If I want to master the 9 shot shapes, why would I want to not have the neutral setup? Thanks. So like I said, everyone has a kind of something that's a little bit easier for them to do. For some people, they're pretty much straight. That's kind of their easiest shot. That's their main shot. It's just kind of a straight one. For other people, it might be a draw. For other people, it might be a fade. So if you're someone who's more on the fade side, you might want to put your driver in the draw setting so that it makes it a little bit easier. So it kind of neutralizes a little bit. Now, the effectiveness of the moving those kinds of things on your driver, they're kind of overblown. So I wouldn't expect miracles. If you normally hit a fade with your driver and you put it in a draw setting, it's not going to automatically straighten it out. It may make it just a small difference. It doesn't make a huge difference in your clubs, but moving that just a little bit can help you to neutralize those a little bit. So that's what I'd recommend doing. Is just whatever. If your normal shot, the easiest shot for you, just kind of a straight shot, you don't have a bias toward something like a fade or a draw feels the easiest, then sure, put it in a neutral position. If you're more biased toward a fade is an easier shot for you, then put the club in a draw setting. If a draw is the easiest shot for you and you want to make it easier for you to hit a fade, then put the ball or put the club in a fade setting to make it kind of counteract that a little bit. But like I said, it's not going to make a huge difference. It really only makes a small difference. It doesn't mean, you could still, even if you are, let's say you're a draw biased person, the easiest shot for you is to hit a draw. And then you counteract that by putting your club in more of a draw position. You can still hit a fade from that position. You can still do that. The only thing that needs to happen is your face needs to be open to the path. So you may need to feel like you're more extreme to do that, but it can still happen. I imagine a lot of people who are slicers, they get the draw clubs, they still slice the ball typically because the face is still open to the path. Maybe it just makes it slightly easier to get that club face to close a little bit. So I got on here just a little bit late, so I do have a couple more minutes if you have any more questions. So I'll give you another minute or two to ask a question, then we'll wrap it up. But thanks everybody for joining me today. A lot of great questions. No lapses, which is good. Sometimes we get kind of slowdowns in the question asking process. So thanks for coming in and asking some awesome questions today. So yeah, I got on here just a little bit late. I was finishing up my lunch. I got back late from the course, and I had to get something to eat real quick. I was starving, so I didn't figure you guys wanted to watch me eat a sandwich. So I tried to finish it up real quick in a minute, and then jumped on here. But any last minute questions, I'll be happy to answer. Give you another minute here. And we'll wrap her up. Peric says, thanks, no problem. Glad I could help. All right, so we're about wrapped up here. So again, thanks everybody for joining me today. We'll be back here tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time. If you got any more questions, ask them to me then, and I will talk to you next time. Have a great day.